Hello friend, this is Ellen Glow from iHave.com, and today I designed a trip around the world in 10 plus 1 books. Are you excited? Let's go! My mission in life is to find books to elevate your mind, move your heart, delight your senses, and free your soul. Most of us have not been able to travel in the last few months, but we can still travel through books. So I designed a delightful, fantastic, wondrous trip all around the world with these books. First, we're going to travel to Nigeria through a book called Purple Hibiscus. This is a delightful, sensual book that takes us into the lives of a family where the father is very religious and very strict, and the rest of the family is attempting to deal and handle all the restrictions that are being placed on their life because of his beliefs. It talks about food and customs and habits and clothing, so you really get a sense of what it feels like to be a Nigerian family living in Nigeria. Next, we're going to travel to Australia. Bum, bum, bum. The novel is Irie by Tim Winton. Now, I tried to research what the word Irie means, and I couldn't find any meaning to it. So my guess is it's a feeling. It's like saying Yahoo or Wow or Yippee or Irie. And this novel definitely captures that feeling of woohoo! Let's go! It tells the story of a man whose life has come undone. Everything in his life has collapsed. His career, his marriage, he's depressed, he's falling apart. Everything in his life has gone wrong. And he's now coming to terms with what happened, why it happened, and he's not trying to rebuild his life. He's just trying to survive in this new life. And you might think, well, that sounds very depressing, but actually it's one of those books that captures the wonder and of being alive, how amazing it is to be alive, even when everything goes wrong and everything has fallen apart, how there's still something worth living for. So next, let's read Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. And this is a book that starts in Korea and then moves to Japan. It tells the story of 4 generations in one family who are Korean. And then when they move to Japan, it tells the story of how they are dealing with all the discrimination and racism they are dealing with. So it's a fantastic novel of what it's like to be an outsider inside a society. It's rich, wonderful, multi-layered. There are many, many characters. It's very descriptive, and it's really a wonderful book to read. Now, we're going to be traveling to Norway through the portal of a book called Knife by NESBO. Now, I have a soft spot for these Norwegian detective novels that are dark and grungy and very depressing. So this novel is about a detective who's trying to solve a murder, but he's also having very serious problems in his life. His wife has left him, he's depressed, he's been drinking excessively, and he's been drinking so excessively he's been having these blackouts. And one day he wakes up from one of these blackouts after a drinking session, and he discovers there's blood on his clothes. And so as he's called upon to solve a murder, he begins to suspect that maybe he's the one who committed the murder. So it gives you this very interesting twist on a murder mystery where the detective solving the murder suspects that maybe he's the one who committed it. But so part of him is thinking, no, there's no way I could have done this. But there's a second part of that says, well, maybe, because some of the evidence really does point towards him. And this puts him in a dilemma. I mean, should he just fess up and present all these facts, or should he try to cover up the evidence? But by covering it up, he's also maybe covering up the evidence that leads to the other murder, right? Next, we're going to travel to North America and then to Switzerland through a novel called Take the Highway. And this is the +1 on this list, a novel written by me. It tells the story of a woman who is attempting to get over a heartbreak. And so initially she's living in an unnamed city in North America, and then she feels inspired to go to Switzerland. So it tells the story of what it feels like to be in a foreign country where you don't speak the language, you don't understand the customs. Initially she feels lonely, but then very quickly she meets a group of people, and it's a very adventurous novel with lots of action and lots of fun and interesting and unexpected things happen to her. It's the sort of adventure that's fun to read about, but not fun to actually live through. Our next destination is Saudi Arabia, and we're going to visit there through the portal of Cities of Soul by Abdurrahman Munif. Cities of Soul is a fictionalized version of the historical events that took place in Saudi Arabia. So it starts by describing a little oasis, a group of people living in an oasis, and then the people who want to excavate for oil start to appear. And it tells you the story of how that affects the community, the relationships with people, how certain aspects of their life improves, but other aspects of their life deteriorates. This novel is banned in many places in the Middle East, including Saudi Arabia. The novelist, Abdurrahman Munif, was stripped of his Saudi citizenship and spent most of his adult life living outside of Saudi Arabia. It is a set of 5 books, so it starts with the oasis and then continues through 5 sets of books. It is a fabulous, wonderful, overwhelming read, and frequently as you're reading things you think that can't possibly be real, but it all actually happened. One of my favorite novels in the whole world. Now we're going to say goodbye to Saudi Arabia and hello India. And for this portion of our trip, we're going to read The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. A wonderful, fabulous book about 2 twins who are growing up in India, and it's the story of their family dynamic, the wonders of what it's like to be a child, some of the interesting things that happen to them as they're growing up and they're coming into their own awareness of what adulthood will be like. It's written in a beautiful, imaginative style, and it's a fabulous, fabulous book. Next, we're going to travel to England. And for this portion of our trip, I've chosen North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. Now, Elizabeth Gaskell was a contemporary of Charles Dickens. So it takes us into that era of English life. So we are traveling not just in distance, but we're traveling in time as well. And the reason I just love and adore this book is that on one level there's this romance, almost Pride and Prejudice type romance, but on this other level is this exploration of social class, of people in different parts of England and how they see each other and how they interact with each other. So there's some characters in the novel who believe in God and others who don't believe in God, and how they clash or interact with each other. So it's a very complex portrayal of society. And one part of the plot, there's this factory, and there's conflict between the workers and the owners, and the novel represents the point of view of all the characters. So you can sympathize with everybody involved in the story. It's a beautiful, fantastical, all-absorbing novel, and there are many twists and turns that are completely unexpected. Like, as you're reading the novel, I kept thinking to myself, I can't believe what happened. I can't believe how these characters have evolved, how these two people find ways to connect and other people fall apart. It's truly a wonderful and absorbing novel. So next, how about we travel to the Amazon forest in Latin America? And we're going to do this through a novel called State of Wonder by PATCHETT. Now, this novel tells the story of a woman who works for a pharmaceutical company, and one of her colleagues traveled to the Amazon forest and disappeared, and everybody presumes that he's dead. And so she feels inspired to go to the same place he went through and try to find out what happened. But also, the company she works for is interested in this particular substance that is derived from a tree that supposedly might contain some kind of a magical cure, right? So she arrives in the Amazon forest, and you get this description of the trees and the dirt and the animals, the mosquitoes. There's one part that involves a big anaconda, python, attacking them. I mean, it's one of those adventures that is fun to read about, but you would never want to live through. So she comes into contact with some of the tribes that are not in contact with the outside world. And these tribes are very territorial, and each tribe is very distinct and different from each other. And there are these rumors that maybe one of those other tribes, they might be cannibals and they might be a bit hostile. So, I mean, this woman goes on this mind-blowing adventure with many twists and turns. It completely changes her concept of herself and who she is and where she is in her life. The ending is absolutely wonderful and perfect and beautiful. It's one of those novels that I just love and adore and highly recommend. And to finish this trip, how about we go to Singapore? And for this portion of this trip, I chose Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. Now, this is a novel I didn't expect to like. I picked it up on a whim. I thought, I probably won't enjoy it. And I was completely surprised by how much fun it was to read. It's not a super serious novel. It's a romance. It's about a woman who meets a guy. She doesn't know he's super rich, and then when she travels with him to Singapore, she suddenly she figures out that not only is he from a rich family, they are crazy rich. They are like level of rich that is just beyond anything you can imagine. And so the novel not only takes us to a country that I personally never visited, but it also takes us on an adventure to visit a social class and a lifestyle that is very different, at least very different from me. It goes into detail, into description of the clothes, the mansions, the private airplanes, the multitudes of servants that all these people have. It's a lifestyle that is completely different and alien to how I live my life. And I was really surprised by how much fun it was to read. In fact, I enjoyed reading it so much, I even read the sequel. I think it's called The China Rich Girlfriend. And that was fun to read as well. So, that concludes our trip around the world with 10 plus 1 books. What did you think of it? Did you agree with this list? Is there anything you would add to it? Please let me know. I hope you enjoyed this. The best way to stay in touch with me is sign up to my mailing list. Simply go visit my website and search for the link that says search for the link that says free ebook. Upon joining my mailing list, you will receive a free ebook from me. See you on the other side. Bye.